The story of Rilee, the little burgundy vintage car. Vintage was sleeping soundly as Eco and Luxie crossed the forecourt of the workshop. Vintage was the name the two cars had given the little burgundy car, which stood proud, shining brightly in the sun. The little brass horn gleamed on the car, and the black wire spoke wheels were just so. The beautiful brass radiator sparkled in the eyes of the two curious classic motor cars. CW151, said Luxie, the little white car, as she read the number plate of the vintage burgundy motor. Doesn't it look wonderful, said Eco, the shiny sports car, who was a lovely silver colour, and very proud of his paintwork he was too. Eco looked closely at the little car in front of him and noticed a dent in the radiator. Oh, look, Vintage has had a bump. I hope it didn't hurt. Oh, it's only a little one, so I don't think so, said Luxie, as she started to drive around the sleeping little car. Just then, the little burgundy car gave a noisy yawn and opened its eyes. Oh, it said, and jumped right off the ground as it found itself looking straight into the headlights of two very lovely cars. What are you? Where am I? What am I doing here? Said the little burgundy car as it started to roll backwards away from the strange cars who were staring at him with excited expressions. Careful, shouted Luxie. Don't have another bump and spoil your lovely wheels. What do you mean? Said the little burgundy car. I do not have lovely wheels. Yes, you do, said Eco, revving his engine in excitement. Oh, and some super cool lines on your doors. And your shiny bumpers. Stop, shouted the little burgundy car. You are making fun of me. I am not shiny, not like you. I'm old and incomplete. A little tear started to roll down Rilee's headlight. Oh, but you are, said Luxie. Come and look. Luxie turned herself to the side so that the little burgundy car could see their reflection in her wing mirrors. It looked and blinked and couldn't believe it. Oh my goodness, look at me, said the little burgundy car as a beautiful shiny car stared back. I look like new. You are like new, said Eco, and he gave the little car a nudge with his silver wing. Luxie turned to face the little burgundy car. What's your name? She asked. Rilee, said the little burgundy car. Rilee, repeated Luxie. I like it. We call you Vintage, as you're so old. I'm Luxie, and this is Eco. We've been waiting for you to wake up for ages. Wake up, said Rilee. What do you mean? We've been watching the clever people put you back together. It was ever so exciting, said Luxie, rocking from side to side with glee. Rilee's eyes grew bigger. Putting me back together? Yes, said Eco, as his voice heightened with wonder. The car technicians, we call them magicians. Car technicians? Magicians? Asked Rilee quizzically, parading proudly around the forecourt, feeling very shiny, but a little bit confused. Eco and Luxie watched him and giggled. Oh, Vintage. Oops, I mean Rilee. You're such a lovely car. Luxie gushed as Rilee came to stop in front of them. Oh, how did they put me back together? Rilee asked with wide eyes. Well, said Eco, and cleared his throat. You looked really old and had no colour at all. And we thought, how can this even be a car? The old magicians found you in an old building in the middle of a field. Yes, it was very old and very dusty, butted in Luxie. But it was a building built to hide you in the war, so you wouldn't get destroyed. She loved history. It was her favourite subject at car school. Oh, my goodness. exclaimed Rilee. The war was a very long time ago, wasn't it? Yes, you are quite old, replied Luxie gently. But that is why you are very important. It's really important to know what old cars looked like. Shall we get on with telling Rilee the story? Eco exclaimed. Eco frowned, as even though he was a racer, he was just as clever. Luxie gave Eco a look and pursed her lips and sat down. Go ahead, she said. Thank you, answered Eco. So, Rilee, we were all very excited when the trailer came to the workshop with all your parts. Oh my, said Rilee, taking a sharp intake of breath. Rilee didn't really like to think of parts. It felt very funny. Eco continued. You had a wooden body and a brass horn. The magicians decided to use as many original parts as they could. It's because you are historic, said Luxie, jumping up excitedly. They did have to use some new parts, Eco continued. Your wheels, mudguards and bonnet are all new, and some of your mechanical parts. They did have your lights and your engine though, as well as your gearbox, which still worked. Rilee's head began to spin with all of these details. Oh, slow down, Eco, said Luxie. Rilee's canopy is spinning with all this information. She turned to Rilee and gave a smile. The most exciting piece of your restoration was your radiator. When you came to the workshop, you didn't have one, but amazingly, it was found in someone's house. And they knew it was yours because of the bump. Isn't that crazy? And she gave a little excited wheel spin. Crazy, replied Rilee quietly. This was all a bit overwhelming for one little car. Luxie, I'm telling the story, said Eco, turning to stare at Luxie. Luxie sighed and gestured for him to carry on with a blowout of her breath. Eco continued. The magicians used the instructions from when you were first made, which was just wonderful, so they were able to restore you back to your beautiful, shiny self. Rilee felt a little teary and gave a small smile. The upholstery magicians made your comfy seats. The others made your brass parts all shiny. Then they rolled up their sleeves and got your engine running after over 100 years. And look at you. Here you are, as good as new. Eco gave a sigh and looked over at Luxie, who gave him a proud nod. He was good at facts, she thought, even though he can get a little huffy sometimes. Rilee couldn't believe it, but as Eco finished his story, Rilee looked a little sad. Its wheels drooped and its hood crumpled. Rilee looked very sad indeed. Oh, Rilee, what's wrong? Asked Luxie. We thought you'd be happy to be restored. You are such a lovely car. Luxie looked at Eco and he shrugged. Rilee gave a big sigh. I am happy, and I can't believe that I am here. But I don't know where here is, and you both look very different to me. Rilee got up and with a turn of the wheels slumped down into the ground, looking lost and sad. Luxie and Eco went to face the sad little car. Oh, don't worry about that, Eco said gently. We'll help you find your wheels. You won't believe how exciting it is to be a motor car now. We are changing the world, he exclaimed. Rilee looked at their excited faces and started to feel a little better. As Rilee looked around the workshop, the little car realised that it would be exciting to learn about this new world. Come on, let's go for a drive around the track, shouted Eco with a little jump. It's so much fun and I always beat Luxie. No, you don't, Luxie replied with a gasp. "You've only beaten me once, and that's because I needed to charge my battery." "What do you mean?" said Rilee, with a quizzical expression. Luxie looked at Rilee and realised that he didn't know about how they could make electric cars out of old cars. "Like you, I was made to run on petrol," she replied. "But I'm an electric car now." "Oh, Rilee, they can make classic cars like me electric, as it's much better for the environment." "An electric car?" replied Rilee in a questioning tone. "Is that like the friendly milk floats and vans?" "Absolutely. Queen Alexandra of Denmark had an electric car," added Luxie knowledgeably. "Did you know that car, Rilee?" she asked with an excited expression. "Oh no," said Rilee, "but I had heard of him. He was very well respected by everyone." Luxie twirled her steering wheel. "It's so cool now. We have lots of electric cars and vans." "Luxie is better for the environment," added Eco excitedly. "And not as expensive as everyone thinks. You see, I was made into an electric car. I'm an electric classic car," she explained proudly. "Even though I was first made in 1962, I am able to live very comfortably as a modern girl." And the sun twinkled off her Italian go-fast stripes on her bonnet. So am I," exclaimed Eco. "I run on sustainable fuel," Eco said, revving his engine. He was very chuffed with his fuel and felt very modern and fast. What is that?" exclaimed Rilee with wide eyes. Rilee had never heard of such a thing, but it sounded really cool. Eco was very excited to explain. "Well," said Eco, "it is a mixture of gases." Luxie started to laugh. "Isn't it poo?" Eco was not impressed. "It is hydrogen and carbon." He ignored Luxie, who was really giggling now. "Hydrogen and carbon," repeated Rilee. "It is then mixed with food and farm waste," Eco continued. "Pooh!" said Luxie. Eco shot her a disdainful look and turned to Rilee and smiled. "Dear Rilee, you have such a lot to catch up on, and we're going to show you everything. But first, let's go and have a race. Last one to the track is a flat tyre," shouted Eco over his shoulder as he sped off towards the track with Luxie hot on his tyres. Rilee's engine started. Rilee loved the noise the engine made and was soon on the way to catch them up. "I'm going to like it here with the electric and sustainable fuel cars. This is brilliant," Rilee thought, and honked their horn twice. I can't wait to hear about what Luxie, Rilee and Eco get up to next.